Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into some really interesting ideas
Mhm.
about the future,
Yeah.
and we'll be looking at an excerpt from Mark Ashmore's book, Beyond Brain Rot,
Okay.
and looking at a future where technology might be making us a little too comfortable.
Oh, interesting.
So comfortable, in fact, that it starts to impact our ability to think critically.
That's a good point. We often kind of celebrate technological advancements, but Ashmore, I think, invites us to consider some of the potential downsides, especially how the constant pursuit of comfort and convenience in the digital world, how that could have some unexpected consequences.
Right, and he starts off by talking about this idea of a 3D social graph,
Hmm.
which is kind of a mind bender, but it essentially refers to this idea that all of our online activity,
Hmm.
all of our posts, our photos, our interactions, especially in these virtual spaces, it creates this really detailed digital representation of who we are.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like a digital shadow,
Yeah.
constantly evolving and growing
Mm.
with every click and comment we make.
And it's not just a passive reflection either. Ashmore points out that this 3D social graph can be analyzed to generate what he calls granular psychographic insights. So think about it this way. Platforms can actually use this data to understand your personality traits,
Wow.
your emotional states, even your purchasing preferences with remarkable accuracy. I mean, you've probably experienced this yourself with those eerily targeted ads that seem to know exactly what you're thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's unnerving sometimes, for sure. But Ashmore actually takes it a step further. He argues that as AI and immersive technologies like VR and AR continue to advance, this 3D social graph could be used to create something called an AI-driven digital twin.
Oh, wow. This is a fascinating concept. Imagine a digital version of yourself that can interact with others online, not just based on, pre-programmed responses, but by actually learning and adapting
Oh, wow.
to mimic your online persona.
So it's not just like a static avatar. It's almost like a digital extension of you.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting, or perhaps a little concerning. Ashmore suggests that these digital twins might not actually reflect our true selves, but rather they might reflect these idealized versions that we kind of present online. After all, we all tend to curate our online identities to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Highlighting the positive and downplaying the, well, let's just say the less flattering aspects of who we are.
Right. It's almost like we're all performing to some degree on social media.
Mm.
Have you ever felt that pressure to project a certain image online, to appear happier or more successful than you actually are?
Absolutely. We all do it to some extent. I think it's this inherent human desire to be perceived in a certain way. And Ashmore suggests that our digital twins might end up embodying these idealized, polished versions of ourselves, lacking the complexity and nuance that make us truly human.
So we're talking about digital representations that are more aspirational and accurate.
Precisely. And this is where Ashmore starts to sound the alarm. He suggests that if we become too reliant on these idealized digital twins to interact with the world, we risk losing touch with our authentic selves and with the messy reality of human connection.
So then what happens when these idealized digital twins, based on our carefully curated online personas,
Hmm.
start interacting with each other in these increasingly immersive digital environments? Where does that lead us?
That's a great question, and that's precisely what we'll be diving into in the next part of this deep dive. Buckle up because Ashmore has some pretty thought-provoking ideas about the potential consequences of this trend. And it all revolves around this concept he calls brain rot.
Okay, now I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to unpack this idea of brain rot and what it means for our future. So this brain rot, it's a pretty provocative term.
It is.
What exactly does Ashmore mean by that?
Well, he's essentially arguing that if we're constantly surrounded by content and interactions that are, tailored to our preferences,
Yeah.
that validate our existing beliefs and avoid challenging us intellectually,
Hmm.
our critical thinking skills could start to atrophy. It's like a muscle that weakens without regular exercise.
So it's not just about being lazy
Right.
or avoiding difficult subjects.
Yeah.
It's more about the way our digital environment is actually like shaping our thought processes.
Exactly. Ashmore suggests that in a future where our digital twins are handling more and more of our online interactions, things like filtering our news feeds,
Yeah.
selecting our entertainment,
Right.
even engaging in discussions on our behalf, we could become so accustomed to this curated,
Right.
comfortable existence that we lose the ability to think for ourselves.
It's kind of ironic. We often think of technology as this tool for expanding our knowledge and connecting us with different perspectives.
Yeah.
But Ashmore is suggesting that it could actually have the opposite effect, narrowing our worldview and limiting our capacity for critical thought.
Yeah, that's the paradox, isn't it? Technology has this incredible potential to both empower and enfeeble us. And I think Ashmore is really urging us to be mindful of the potential downsides,
Right.
to be proactive in shaping the digital future we want, rather than passively accepting whatever comes our way.
And one of the things he emphasizes is the importance of recognizing and valuing authenticity, both in ourselves and in others. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. You know, Ashmore believes that in a world dominated by digital twins and these curated experiences,
Uh-huh.
there's a real danger of losing sight of what makes us truly human, our imperfections, our vulnerabilities, our unique perspectives and experiences. He worries that if we're constantly interacting with these idealized versions of ourselves and others,
Uh-huh.
we might start to crave that artificial perfection in the real world, setting ourselves up for disappointment and disconnection.
It's almost like we're talking about two different types of intelligence here. There's the kind of intelligence that's about processing information quickly and efficiently, making calculations, optimizing for certain outcomes, which is what AI excels at.
Yeah.
But then there's this other kind of intelligence that's
Right.
about empathy, compassion,
Yeah.
understanding the nuances of human emotion and behavior, appreciating the beauty of imperfection, which is something that's uniquely human.
That's a brilliant observation, and Ashmore argues that we need to be careful not to conflate the two. Just because AI can mimic certain aspects of human intelligence doesn't mean it can replace the qualities that make us truly human. In fact, he suggests that the rise of AI makes it even more important for us to cultivate those uniquely human qualities, our creativity,
Yeah.
our empathy, our critical thinking skills, because those are the things that will ultimately set us apart in a world increasingly dominated by machines.
So how do we do that? How do we cultivate those qualities in ourselves and in future generations in a world that seems to be pushing us towards comfort and convenience at all costs? What does Ashmore suggest?
Well, he believes it starts with awareness, recognizing the potential pitfalls of a future where our digital twins are making more and more decisions for us.
Right.
But awareness alone isn't enough. He also emphasizes the importance of taking action, both individually and collectively.
Okay, so what kind of action are we talking about? Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure. On an individual level, Ashmore encourages us to be more mindful of our digital habits.
Right.
How much time are we spending online? What kind of content are we consuming?
Yeah.
Are we actively seeking out diverse perspectives and challenging our own beliefs? Or are we just passively scrolling through feeds that reinforce our existing biases? He also suggests setting boundaries, making conscious choices about when to disconnect, when to put down the devices and engage with the real world. Go for a walk in nature.
Right. Have a face-to-face conversation with loved ones.
Yeah.
Pursue a creative hobby.
All of those things that nourish our souls and help us connect with our authentic selves.
Those are all great suggestions, but like you said, individual action alone isn't enough. What does Ashmore propose on a societal level?
Well, he stresses the importance of reforming our education systems to prioritize critical thinking, media literacy, and ethical technology development. He believes that we need to equip future generations with the tools to navigate this increasingly complex digital landscape,
Right.
to be able to discern fact from fiction, to identify biases, to analyze information critically, and to make informed decisions about how they use technology.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
We can't just rely on technology companies to self-regulate. We need to educate citizens to be informed, critical consumers of technology. Exactly. And Ashmore also argues that we need to have a broader conversation about the ethical implications of AI and the role we want it to play in our lives. We need to ask ourselves, what values do we want to embed in these technologies? How do we ensure that they're used to benefit humanity as a whole, rather than just serving the interests of a select few?
These are really important questions. It sounds like Ashmore is calling for a shift in our thinking, a recognition that technology is not inherently good or bad, but it's a tool that can be used for different purposes.
Yeah,
And we need to be very intentional about the purposes we choose.
that's a great way to sum it up. He's basically saying that we need to reclaim our agency,
Yeah.
our ability to shape the digital future we want, rather than passively accepting the future that's being created for us by tech companies or by algorithms. And he believes that education,
Right.
critical thinking, and a commitment to human values are the keys to doing that.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation.
Hmm.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about in terms of my own digital habits and how I can be more intentional about using technology in a way that enhances my life rather than diminishes it.
I agree. And I think one of the most important takeaways from Ashmore's work is this idea that the future is not predetermined.
Right.
It's something we're actively creating
Yeah.
through our choices, our actions, our values.
Uh-huh.
And he's urging us to be conscious creators,
Yeah.
to think critically about the world we're building, both online and offline,
Right.
and to ensure that it's a world that reflects our highest aspirations for humanity.
This seems like a good place to pause for now.
Hmm.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the concept of the 3D social graph to the potential for brain rot and the importance of authenticity in a digital age. When we come back, I'd like to delve a little deeper into some specific strategies for mitigating the risks Ashmore outlines and discuss some of the potential benefits of AI and immersive technologies, because I think it's important to acknowledge both sides of the coin.
I think that's a great idea. It's all about finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Embracing the possibilities while also being mindful of the potential pitfalls. I look forward to continuing this conversation.
So we've talked about a lot of the downsides, of a world where our digital twins and these curated experiences dominate.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember there are also, potential benefits as well. After all, these technologies aren't inherently bad.
Right, exactly. And Ashmore acknowledges that. These advancements could lead to some really positive outcomes. For example, he points out that AI-driven digital twins could be incredibly helpful in certain contexts. Like, imagine a digital twin that helps you manage your calendar, filters your email, or even handles basic customer service interactions on your behalf. It would free up so much time and energy for, more creative and meaningful pursuits.
So it's about using these tools strategically, right? Delegating tasks that can be easily automated so we can focus on things that require those uniquely human skills and insights.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot where technology actually enhances our lives without diminishing our autonomy or our critical thinking skills. And Ashmore suggests one way to achieve that is by being more intentional about the design and development of these technologies.
What does he mean by that? What does that look like?
Well, he argues that we need to move away from a purely utilitarian approach to technology, one that focuses solely on efficiency and convenience, and instead embrace a more humanistic approach that prioritizes human well-being, creativity, and critical thought. We really need to ask ourselves, how can we design these technologies in a way that empowers users,
Right.
encourages curiosity, and fosters a sense of agency rather than complacency?
So it's about building in safeguards, right? Ensuring that these technologies are actually serving us rather than the other way around. Can you give us some concrete examples of what that might look like in practice?
Absolutely. So Ashmore suggests that platforms could be designed to encourage users to step outside their comfort zones, to expose themselves to diverse perspectives, and to, engage in meaningful dialogue, even when it might be challenging. Imagine a social media platform that actually prompts users to connect with people who hold different viewpoints, or that highlights content that actually challenges their existing beliefs.
That's interesting. It almost feels counterintuitive to what we typically see on social media,
Yeah.
which often just reinforces our biases rather than challenges them.
Yeah, exactly. And Ashmore really believes that we need to be more deliberate about breaking out of those filter bubbles and echo chambers. He also suggests that education systems could play a key role in preparing future generations for a world where AI and immersive technologies are just everywhere, ubiquitous.
So it's not just about teaching kids how to code or use specific software programs, but more about cultivating a deeper understanding of how these technologies work, how they shape our thinking, and how we can use them responsibly.
Exactly. Ashmore argues that we need to equip future generations with the critical thinking skills and media literacy to properly navigate this increasingly complex digital landscape. And that means teaching them not just how to consume information, but how to create it,
Right.
how to analyze it critically, and how to use it to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about empowering them to be active participants in shaping the digital future, not just passive consumers of whatever technology throws their way.
Right. And I think one of the most hopeful aspects of Ashmore's work is this belief that we have the agency to do that. He's not saying that technology is going to inevitably lead to brain rot or that the future is predetermined. He's saying we have choices to make, both individually and collectively, and those choices will ultimately determine the kind of world we create.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I've gotten a much deeper understanding of the potential impact of AI and immersive technologies on our lives, both the good and the bad. And I'm definitely going to be more mindful of my own digital habits and the choices I make as a consumer of technology.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I think that's ultimately what Ashmore is hoping to achieve with his work, to spark a conversation, to raise awareness, and to empower individuals to take an active role in shaping the digital future.
Well, I think he's certainly succeeded on that front. This has been a really thought-provoking conversation, and I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your insights today.
It's been a pleasure. And to our listeners out there, remember, the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something that we create. So be mindful, be critical, and be engaged. The future is in our hands.
That's a powerful message. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of digital twins, algorithmic curation, and the quest for a more balanced digital future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.